I said, it's not the kind of market right now where you just want to try something. In many cases, buyers are in control. So I had a situation earlier this week when I met with a client or a seller who became a client actually. So I told him that his home's value is $700,000. And he said he wanted a little bit more, which is perfectly normal for sellers to want a little bit more money. And sometimes sellers think their property is worth a little bit more than it actually is. In some cases, they know it's not worth more, but they want to try the market. So I don't know what the scenario was with this particular gentleman, but I told him his home was worth $700,000. He said he wanted to push it a little bit. He wanted to put the listing at $719,000. I said to him, I said, look, it's your house. If that's what you want to do, we can talk about that, but I strongly recommend against doing that. And he said, why? He said, why don't we just try it? I said, it's not the kind of market right now where you just want to try something. In many cases, buyers are in control. They have lots of options. And in that particular scenario, buyers had probably 30 or 40 other homes for sale on the market at that exact time, in which if they passed on your house, they can move on to those. So I said to him, I said, your number really needs to be $700,000. I recommend a list price of $699. But he said, well, let's try it for a bit more. I said, here's what's going to happen. A week from now, you're not going to get any showings, or you may get a couple of showings, and you're not going to get any offers. And then another week's going to pass and you're not going to get any offers, and the showings are going to dwindle off. And then at that point, I'm going to show up at your house. And guess what? I'm not going to say, let's list it at $699. At that point, I'm going to say, let's list it at $689. And he said, well, is the market going to drop 10,000 in those 2 weeks? I said, not necessarily, and likely not. But here's what we have to do. We have to invigorate your listing now. We have to take into consideration that buyers have had 2 weeks to look at this listing, and now after 2 weeks, it's not a hot new listing anymore. It's a listing that's been on the market. And how do we compensate that? Well, we have to make it a bit more attractive financially. So I'm going to be showing up and saying your house is worth $689 now if you want it sold within the next few days or within the next week, which is still very, very possible. But I said, what you've done now is if you listed at $689, you're probably going to accept an offer at $685. Whereas if you list it as $699, you're probably going to get between $690 and $695. So you're going to lose $5,000 to $10,000 and a couple of weeks by going the higher route, because sellers, unfortunately, are just not being rewarded for being adventurous with their pricing in this type of market. Price it right, price it tight, get it sold quickly. Anything that is priced right, that's priced, exactly on par with the market, it does get attention right up front, and it will sell relatively quickly. The average time on the market right now is between 21 to 28 days, and I would still say that's pretty healthy. So anyways, wanted to share that with you guys. Hope that helps. See ya.